we don't actually like to call dad skeptical at all because we think that's rude. We just have always shifted our perspective to understand where they're coming from. And so we're not going to put them down to move them forward and have them be a part of the family getting healthy because, oh, by the way, their nervous systems are stressed, depleted, and exhausted as well. Welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast, where we help parents find hope, answers, and drug-free help to overcome your child's chronic health challenges. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be sharing my experiences as both a dad and a doctor on every episode. I can take the latest science and neurology of healing and break it down in the most simple and relatable way possible. We'll take on the toughest topics and answer your biggest questions through interviews with other amazing parents and leading experts, leaving you with practical action steps that you can take to help your child heal and thrive. It's time to expect and experience miracles. Let's get started. All right, parents, welcome back to another episode of the Experience Miracles podcast. And we know what we're doing here. When I say parents, I know, and again, there is analytics on all these things called the Facebook, Instagram, and even podcast players to know that about 85 to 90% of our audience is moms, are moms. We love you. You are the inquisitive, up late at night, searching for answers on Facebook, on Instagram, on Google, on podcasts. So you found us. Hopefully, you love us and these conversations we have each week on the Experience Miracles podcast. And hopefully, I know you will, love this conversation too. It's going to be completely different. And it is absolutely directed to you, moms, but it's directed to the person probably driving the minivan and the SUV right now, who probably wouldn't have chosen this podcast. They probably would have chosen Dr. Matt. I think you might have chosen maybe Joe Rogan or Cameron Haynes or David Goggins. That's what Dr. Matt is. So we've got dads with us here, Dr. Jonah and Dr. Matt. But you're coming from the doctor angles, but we're really coming from the dad angle today. And we have two goals, which are really one, with this panel interview episode coming out around Father's Day. We want to be able to help you, a mom who is listening all the time to this podcast, better understand the perspective, the questions, the concerns, and just really where your spouse, your husband, where dads might be coming from and are coming from when it comes to this thing called drug-free, neurologically-focused chiropractic care and taking a new approach to getting your family healthy. We want to help you work together as a crew to get your family healthy. And it's important to know that God made, the internal wirings of dudes and non-dudes different. And then in the same thing, we would love to have you share this episode for sure with your spouse, with dad, and say, hey, for this one, maybe you don't want to listen to an hour and 15 minutes of Dr. Tony talking about emotional healing in the prefrontal cortex, but this one is for dads. We are going to absolutely come at you. I do it on every episode. I just have two of my best friends to go at this one. So Dr. Jonah, Dr. Matt, welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast. Are you ready for this?
We're going to try to be. Yeah. Right? Like when you get the three of us together, it's, yeah.
So we read, we don't have, I actually don't have bios on you guys, which I suppose the team knows. Dude, you know these dudes. So Dr. Matt is, we can definitely call him a veteran of parenting.
It's not just the gray hair if you're watching this. Right?
Matt and I've got I have no hair left. But that's by choice. And so Dr. Matt and I both have 4 kids. God has blessed Dr. Matt with 4 dudes. And I was just listening to the Nate Bargatze, I never know how to say it, Nate Bargatze or whatever, the crazy, funny, more dad comedians. And he was joking about the difference between little girls and the little boy.
Girls just love to color.
Yeah. And
boys love to break the crayons and throw them at
He said his buddy dropped off his son and was like, hey, can you watch him for the day? And he's like, I didn't know they were going to drop off a bobcat in my house. And then Dr. Jonah, what'd you say before we started recording? You're a little fresh to the game?
I'm a little fresh to the game. About 9 months into it at the moment.
9 months, baby Goldie. So we're a team here, as these are incredible pediatric chiropractors on our team. But the way our team operates, we're family. And so our kids are each other's good buddies. And now baby Goldie is kind of the resident brand new baby for Team PWC.
Entertainment watcher.
Big time. So what we want to do is really give you guys an understanding that you probably just don't have until we slow down to break this down and say, where are dads really coming from? So we're going to throw this to Dr. Matt first, because Dr. Matt's entrance, his story to become a chiropractor starts as a dad with his incredible son, Micah, and coming into chiropractic first back in Arizona. And then when you guys moved here for your job with Target, you were rocking that corporate life. And so your initial perspective, your initial understanding all about nervous system focused chiropractic for kids didn't come from chiropractic school. You know, it came from being a dad. So one thing you always say, and I think it's so great and it's so right on, is when we call dads skeptical about chiropractic, that's not really an accurate word. Dads very much so get a bad rap in this game where they're not even skeptical. They just have a different perspective. They have done little to no homework, which is something we're going to talk about. That's where they're coming from. And we need to address that. And we need to take that on as dads and say, okay, let's get in on the homework game. But what do you mean? I'll just start it that way. What do you mean when you say dads get a bad rap?
Yeah, I mean, I can just talk about this from personal experience. I think like I'd relate to a lot of dads is we don't make the healthcare choices for our family, whether that be, you know, good or bad. That's just the way I grew up and you know, the way we started with our kids is, you know, Crystal would do the research. Crystal would, you know, bring it to me, and then, you know, I would make the appointments, do that. And then I would kind of come along for the ride. And so I think that coupled with a dad's natural just inclination to be more the protector, more the one who like thinks about like the safety of the family and that side of it, is you get presented with something new that's totally different, totally outside of your paradigm, you've never heard of before, and immediately you're gonna, you know, be a little bit skeptical about it. And that's not because you're actually skeptical.
Totally.
It's because, you know, use the baseball analogy here, is your wife is on third base. She has already done all the research, vetted them, trust them, know more about it, and you're just walking into the batter's box. Yeah. And she's like, no, this is good. You just don't know anything about it. So that's where you've got to catch up. So whether that, you know, be right or wrong, it's more we're that protector and we've got a long way to go. And that's okay. It's okay to slow down.
That's a perfect perspective. And if you take the word protection, you put it into a neurological lens, which on this podcast, we interpret everything through a parent perspective. We interpret everything through a neuroscience perspective. And then we interpret everything through, a natural health, what we would call the chiropractic principles, which is God designed us to be healthy. God gave us the nervous system as the master controller system. So that's, we put it through those lenses, if you will. And where I'm going with that is it's absolutely when you're in a state of protection, which is a dad's natural wiring, protection means stay stuck. Don't try new things. Don't go outside the cave. There's danger. And that's I know I just brought in like a primal neurological perspective there, but that is where dads are wired. We really love tradition. We really do not love change. And so I'll throw a joke in here. I was thinking about out of this one. If our wives had their way, there would be new throw pillows, new rugs, new paint, new couches, and probably even just a whole new home every week. And that might be, you know, the other stuff, the smaller stuff, it might be a daily rotation. Like if somebody could come in and just change the whole look of the house every single day, that would be wonderful to a lot of our wives. To us, we wouldn't change it for 40 freaking years. And that's why God puts us together, because the middle of that is probably better. You know, the sweet spot is not probably. God made man and woman to be together for so much of this, not even balancing out. That's not how we look at it. This exponential effect where a dad is wired to be protective is so needed for the health of the family. And the way a mom is more generally wired to be inquisitive, to be looking for something better, something new all the time. Goodness gracious, do we need that too? And so when we come together and we combine these perspectives instead of saying, oh, it's either this one or that one. None of us love the word or. We cannot stand the word or. We love the word and. So for you, Jonah, and you and Dr. Ali, you have a different perspective. You guys, and you even had access to chiropractic care really early yourself. Dr. Ali is the daughter of an incredible chiropractor. So when you came into parenting, this was a perspective you already had rooted in. So for you, it's probably, you've got to almost really slow down and think through this conversation when you're sitting in a report of findings or a consult with a dad, right? So how do you address that when you know that a dad may be sitting there and you can kind of read some body language and say, oh man, like Matt said, this is brand new to dad. They don't know the first thing about chiropractic. They showed up, maybe not even fully willingly, but hey, they're here. And we love them. If you're listening, brother man, thank you. That's all we're asking is the first step to give us a chance to make sense of this for you in your language. We're dads. We're not going to church this up and fancy this up. We're going to keep it simple, straightforward, and truthful. So knowing that for dad in those consults and reported findings, Jonah, what is the perspective you start with to make sure you can help their family in the way that you know they need to understand it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And going back to what Dr. Matt said, like most of the time they're at the batter's box and the mom's at third base. The biggest thing I like to give is just give them all the information and then give them time. I think they value having all the information, seeing it from all the different angles, and then sitting with that and giving them time to get around to third base. And we see that with a lot of dads that they're coming for a little bit longer. They said yes, and now they are doing the more research by themselves, and then they'll be maybe passing mom and being a little bit more fired up than me, even mom is. It's cool to see that transition for a lot of families, and I think it's so cool for the mom to see the dad taking on that role with the health of their family.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such cool perspective, dude, because that is what it is. We maybe haven't started yet, and so for parents together, we have to spend that time doing that research. So we got to give that time to make that happen. Now, what's awesome, and this is literally what we're doing today, the Experience Miracles podcast, all the articles on pxdocs.com, all the videos we have on YouTube and Facebook and so forth, those would be the places, Dad, where you can go to get the information to make sense of this. And the way that I really think has been so helpful with God's journey for us is it's a lot of, like Matt, you joined me in making a lot of that content. And guess what? It's two dads making that content. So you're going to, if your child's struggling with autism, watch our videos about it. If your child is struggling with chronic immune challenges or colic or constipation, watch our videos about it, because it absolutely is something that is so worth investing the time, because we know once we get past that kind of protective, natural, very healthy cover that we have as dads, and we get to the inside, the only thing we want is one thing with two sides to it. We want to see our kids be done suffering and struggling yesterday, and we want them to be absolutely healthy and at their full potential. But we have to get past the struggle to get to the potential. And so dads, I think we have to get past our, oh, this is new, I'm just going to shut it down. And we need to be able to open up. And as you said earlier,
yeah, it's a paradigm shift. It's exactly like, I'm more of an introvert at heart. So my wife, she's a social butterfly. I wear the butterfly shirt.
You're wearing a butterfly shirt.
Butterfly shirt, right?
Fly high.
But it's like when Crystal drags me to like that weekend party after a long week, and I'm like, man, I don't really want to go. Like, do I have to go? And then you go, and we're on the drive home, and she's like, aren't you glad you went? And I'm like, yes, you're right. I'm glad I went. This was great. It's the same thing with shifting these paradigms that we went through when our son Micah started going to a chiropractor. It didn't have to fight me for it necessarily, but I was questioning. I wasn't sure. I wanted to know. But then after the fact, I'm on board, because what you realize right away is they meet your values. You trust them. They're just like you. And you start to look and be like, okay, there's a lot more science behind this than I thought. And I think that was the biggest piece for me, is to be able to absorb that it wasn't about maybe just one thing in it. It was the combination of it. Like, they met my values. There was backing behind it. I knew I could get the results. I saw the social proof. It met all these things. And I was like, why didn't I know about this? Like, why haven't you taken me to this party before? And she's like, right on the drive home, she's like, I told you, I've been reading this stuff. This is great.
Well, first off, yeah, it's awesome. Now that I think about your story in that perspective, so I just imagine you kind of like driving in first gear, like, okay, I'm not shutting this down, but I'm going to these appointments, and you're thinking, all right, chiropractors. And I suppose I was one of them early on, right? I don't want to say the words are proven, but you were just like, make this make more sense to me, and then I'll get on board. So to make sense, it needs to be, let's break these down, fellas. It needs to be a values match. Goodness, I love that. You need to be able to have the science explained to you in a way that isn't overly complicated, but also we all do. We despise the word to dumb it down. That is the last thing dads are asking for. That is the last thing we will do for parents. That is so off-putting. And we don't actually like to call dad skeptical at all because we think that's rude. We just have always shifted our perspective to understand where they're coming from. And so we're not going to put them down to move them forward and have them be a part of the family getting healthy. Because, oh, by the way, their nervous systems are stressed, depleted, and exhausted as well. So we're not just talking about this conversation to get kids healthy. We can't get kids all the way healthy if dad doesn't get all the way healthy. Well, there is studies that show, just like faith and going to church, that if the dad is involved, the whole family's faith grows, their character, their identity grows. It's actually the same with healthcare. If the dad is engaged in it, the family, literally, statistically, is shown to get healthier as a result. So we're not dumbing it down. We are going to bring it on dad level because they just operate from a different lens, like we've said the whole time. So we're going to go to science and then social proof. So what you may not know about Dr. Matt's story is he may have rolled in slow, and then he quit his job at Target, picked up his whole family, moved to another state, went to chiropractic school, now is one of the leading pediatric chiropractors on earth. And he did it fast. When we brought Dr. Matt onto the team, there is no one ever who has picked up this work with such ferociousness and passion and just an unrelenting willingness to take this work to the world. So that's a perfect analogy of you being like, I don't know. And then
I don't know. No, I mean,
bam.
the true story of it is I wasn't the one taking Micah to his first appointments either. Crystal was driving about an hour each way to go to these appointments. And I remember seeing some things, and he started sleeping through the night. He started to have drainage and not the ear struggles and the ear infections and things, honestly, for a dad, things got a little bit easier, but I wasn't yet ready to tie it together.
Yeah, but those little things mattered.
They mattered. They mattered so much. I just wasn't ready to tie it to that.
Okay.
So then one day I remember asking Crystal, and this was only probably a week or two in to care. And I remember being like, wow, like Micah, he slept a lot better last night. And this is a lot easier. Is that from the chiropractic? And she literally dropped her stuff and she was like, well, what do you think it's from, dummy? Like, what have we been doing? And so at that moment I was like, okay, like I'm seeing this, like I want to get more involved in it. So then I start going to the appointments. I start learning more and more what's going on.
Can we unpack this? And Jonah, I'm going to kick it to you because when you said earlier, dead on accurate, hey, dads need more time. They also need at least a little bit of evidence. And if we take the word evidence, most people would think, oh, show me this. So here's what we do as dads. We may ask for research. We're not actually asking for research. That's just kind of how we're wired. That kind of, those words come out of our mouth when we're asking, how do I know? And how can you even show me that this is going to work for my child? We're very personal as dads. We definitely have a big vision of seeing families and others healthy, but we live internally. We absolutely, every moment of every day, we think about the health of our kids, and that just runs the show. So what Matt called it was social proof, and that means like testimonials and everything else. But what I've noticed over time is to dads, other kids' stories don't matter as much, just being honest. What they want to do is just get started. And do you work that into the conversation where you say, hey, I understand this is brand new. I understand that you're going to need more time. Because what you alluded to there is, and you're adjusted too, is like all of a sudden dads start bringing the kids to the appointments, and they maybe didn't have a lot of questions in the beginning because they didn't even know where to come from with questions. But they get a couple of weeks or a couple of months into care, and they're asking more questions than mom because they're starting to see what Matt just shared with Micah. So how important is it that they see some of those early wins, what we call neurological soft side?
Yeah, so important. And that's what keeps you going. Just like in golf, those good shots are the only reason you keep going back. If it was just bad all the time, then you probably wouldn't keep playing. But yeah, going back to that, giving them time, and when those questions really start coming, that's when they really start exponentially learning too. And future pacing some of that in the conversation beforehand. This is what we expect to see. This is what we commonly see first change, and then that gives them something to look for in those first weeks and months of care.
And here's what you may not know, moms and dads, about this. That is something that is so essential that we as chiropractors, we absolutely make room for that with dads who are still, and moms, who are still sorting this out and who still say, okay, we're going to give this a try. If we're being honest, we don't prefer the, hey, let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. Because, and here's why. Because scientifically, philosophically, chiropractic isn't about symptomatic change. Medicine is the values, the way medicine is wired is it only worked if the symptoms got better, and it didn't work if the symptoms didn't get better. Well, that inherently is what's wrong with our healthcare system, because symptoms are a bad, not very accurate sign of whether the body is working better or not. There is better signs, which are scans and everything else. But again, that's foreign. That's new to a dad. So what we've always done at PWC is what we call meet you guys where you're at. And if a family, if a dad or a mom wants to get started for a month or two and see some change first, that's not caution to us per se. It's also not preferred, but I'm speaking right into a tough truth here of saying, but the only thing we want to do is get a chance to help your child, because we know it will work. It'll work early, it'll work in the middle, and best of all, by far, it'll work long term. So if you are a dad, if you're a mom listening, and to this point, your husband, that dad has been skeptical, been resistant, and been unwilling to even get started, you can have a little bit of this middle conversation that says, let's get a month or two of this care. Let's get a month or two of these adjustments. And then for us as chiropractors, we need to be very specific in this conversation and say, hey, if you've got a nonverbal child with autism, do not expect 3 adjustments in 3 words and 3 sentences. If you've got a child struggling with seizures for 10 years, do not expect them to be gone in 10 adjustments. I mean, it's not even in the stratosphere. But thankfully, there is what we call neurological soft signs. There's some early signs of the nervous system being better relaxed, better regulated. You will see, the vast majority of the time, you'll see your child sleep better. You'll see your child eat better, poop better, get over a cold faster, handle a transition a little bit easier. So there will be early signs. And so dads, moms listening, if you need that, we get that. We really do. Now, Dr. Matt, I'm going to circle back to something you said. We'll go to values first. What are the values of a dad? Because my values, I'll let you go. Mine are in stark contrast to how pediatricians, the way my wife was treated by the medical system. I will say it. You can listen to, I think it's podcast number 2 where we tell Oliver's story. I don't remember what number it is. It's way early. You can hear the raw emotion I share when our team interviews me about Oliver's experience. Oh, no, that's the wrong way to say it. My parenting experience with medical doctors was the most angry, and you guys know me. I have a very long leash before I get angry. I've never been more mad in my life because my dad core values run in absolute mother flipping opposition to the values in the operational model of modern medicine. So I'll shut up.
Yeah,
because I'm going to get mad. The anger is brewing of how they treated me and my wife most especially. What do you mean by values? What are dad values and our values?
I'll take this now. I mean, I could read the machine there and we could talk about it from that, but I'll take it from the other side of it, of what dads value. And this will contrast it a little bit. A word we love is the contrast side of it, is we want answers and to get to the root cause. So how many dads listening to this, or even spouses, know that the dads, we don't like going to the doctor, right? Like we never have, right? And I think some of that boils down to us pre-thinking in our brain, what are they going to do for me? How can they really help me? Because of the past experiences we've had, right? The contrast that we've had in our life when we go to a doctor is, we tell them this big, long story. We fill out all this paperwork, takes us forever, tell them the whole story, tell them it again when we're sitting on that table in this gown, and they listen maybe for like 2 minutes. And they're like, here, take this, be on your way. And you have more questions. And by the time you're ready to ask those questions, they're already out the door.
And even if they give you space, they don't have any answers.
Yeah. And so as a dad, you immediately think, okay, that's what I've experienced in the mainstream healthcare model. I don't want that for my family or kids.
Always a waste of time.
Yeah. And so anything healthcare, immediately the red flags go up and be like, well, I don't want that experience. So that's the paradigm shift that had to happen for me, and I think for a lot of other dads, is you meet a doctor that meets the contrast of those values. They start to listen to you. They start to read your paperwork before they come into the office. They start to give you answers that are backed up with science and get at the root cause. They give you a care plan that actually gives you, okay, here's how long it's going to take, not just, okay, take this, and if it doesn't work.
And can I just sneak this in? That care plan is not sugar-coated. There's no, oh, this is the magical potion. No, this is going to take work. We tell you the truth.
Yeah. So I think that contrast for dads is really important, because then we start to see, oh, this is so different. This meets all those values. This check marks all those questions I had in my mind, not objections. They weren't objections to us. They were just questions. We just didn't know about it. And so then you start to realize, oh, this meets my values. It means, like it's getting to the root cause. It's helping the efficiency of my kids. It's helping us in general. It's going to help us, not only get past that bigger condition that we're struggling with. Yes, that's the problem that all of us come in with, saying we need it. But then there's a long-term shift into, okay, here's what I need to do to be healthy, because it all starts with the nervous system. So there's so much contrast in it that equals the values that I have, that it's just like, you're just like, I'm in, I'm all in.
Well, if we're playing the contrast game, let's go into overtime on the contrast game here, fellas. So the other thing that is important to contrast, and we do it all the time on this podcast, we contrast between the three different kinds of healthcare, the three different types of doctor that you can choose to trust to guide your family to a healthier place. Now, you may right now think that there's only kind of two, that there's traditional, conventional. We contrast against them all the time. The conventional pediatrician blames genetics, blames, chemical imbalances, which they say are genetic, and, blames all sorts of just bad luck. There's nothing you can do about it. Here's your medication. So that is in stark contrast to both mom and dad philosophies and values today. We know that. We're recording this podcast episode in 2024. The gig is up. The internet is here. And so the conventional pediatrician can no longer be so polar opposite from our values and get away with it. So families are leaving. I always talk about this all the time. There's this thing in the workplace called the Great Resignation era, where people are quitting their job and going off to other ones. Well, there's the Great Resignation of the conventional pediatrician. People are firing. And all the moms and dads listen to this podcast right now, like, I did that.
I'd almost say, and a lot of it is quiet quitting. Those who aren't like, you're quiet quitting.
Coming back.
You just stop going.
Yeah, right? You're going somewhere else. So now here's the somewhere else where you've likely found yourself is into healthcare option number 2, which goes by many names, which mean the same thing: natural, holistic, integrative, functional medicine. Now hang with me, parents listening. It's still medicine. Now, awesomely, this kind of medicine goes a couple layers deep. So the first layer, conventional medicine, doesn't go a layer deep. None. They don't even pretend to get into the root cause. They just stuff it down. The second group, natural, integrative, functional medicine, which is where we take our kids if they're struggling with something, right? These are the people who we have on speed dial to help out. They take the approach of, oh, this condition, here's this supplement. This challenge, here's this essential oil. This issue, here's this therapy. And so it's much more addressing the root cause-ish, but it still leaves so many kids struggling. So dads of today, Jonah and Matt, they come in, moms, dads of today, they haven't just exhausted the pediatrician, the neurologist, the gastroenterologist, and the medical allergist. They have exhausted diet changes, detoxes, essential oils, tongue tie revisions, homeopathic, herbal, the list goes on. So dads of today, if we weren't already skeptical, y'all are giving us, there's a lot of layers to this, because we're like, come on, we mistakenly, and dads, here's what you need to hear. And no judgment, just giving you clarity on this. You mistakenly think chiropractic is the same, and it's not even close. Because the nervous system is the one system that actually foundationally entirely controls gut function, immune function, endocrine function, inflammatory regulation, gross and fine motor and social and emotional regulation, cognition, speech and communication. So the third option of healthcare, which this podcast is set forth to bring this to even let you know that there's a choice of neurologically focused healthcare, It is vividly different, contrast points, vividly different than even natural or holistic healthcare, which we are the biggest fans of. In fact, we're big fans of conventional medicine when emergencies arise and we have broken bones and infections and everything else.
I got 4 boys.
Yeah, totally. And it was a weird thing. Yeah, and I live on a farm. So the last thing that we want you to do is to throw the baby out with the bathwater. When you look at chiropractic, if you think chiropractic is another round of supplements and essential oils and diet changes and detoxes, this kind of chiropractic is different. And so, Jonah, when dads see that, and Matt, when dads see that and they start to go, whoa, nervous system, tell me more. How much, speaking of stress on the nervous system, don't you, in that moment, I see it with Perfect Storm workshops, I see it with consultations and reported findings with dads, don't you see their stress come down by 1,000,000 pounds once they realize, holy crap, this is different. This isn't the same as everything we've already tried. And then they'll look literally to their spouse who got them there. Moms, you made it happen. You did the homework. You made the appointment. Then they look to the spouse and they go, thank God you did this. Thank God you got us here. Because I've actually seen a lot of dads get emotional in that moment where they go, son of a gun, I had no clue this was different. So what are some things, Jonah, that you're able to communicate to them about the nervous system? And you keep it super simple, that allow them to see the difference between nervous system focused chiropractic and even what we would call natural holistic health.
Yeah, I guess just a lot of those first two options are playing on the defense of everything. So this happens and you're kind of reacting to it. So we talk about a lot with that third option is how can we get ahead of some of those things? And I like to use the bucket analogy of the 3 emotional stressors, chemical stressors, physical stressors, add fluid to that bucket. And once there's overflow, that's when those symptoms start happening. So those other 2 options aim to try to decrease some of that other bucket. But in chiropractic, how can we get that bucket to be as big as possible?
Yeah.
And I think that gives us the most resilience, the most adaptability in our health is when we can take it on and handle some of those things without getting overwhelmed into that.
And kids today have, due to the perfect storm, stress during pregnancy and fetal development, physical birth trauma that shuts down their nervous system, shifts it into sympathetic dominance. What kids today lack is any resilience and adaptability. They have, in this analogy, they have the smallest buckets possible. Mm-hmm. So here's what dads innately know, but no one else, no other doctor has said this to them. Toxins aren't new. Our grandparents had them. Physical stress isn't new. Emotional stress, our kids are going to face some challenges in school and friends and teachers and whatnot. So you cannot at all keep crap from coming in the bucket for your kiddos. Now, can we live a healthy, wellness, proactive life? Move to a farm, grow your own chickens, have your own chickens and grow your own food. Yeah, if you got time, go for it. You can do that, but that still will not put your child into a bubble, and that still will not reverse the stress that may have likely already is on their nervous system from where they are. And so proactive neurologically focused chiropractic is about building bigger buckets. It's about building resilience, building adaptability. And if there was ever, this is a perfect kind of like 3rd, 4th quarter here, fellas, if there was ever something more aligned with the dad's wishes, what I want for my kids is to be tough. I want my kids to have grit. I want my kids to, so those are the words that maybe are more dad language. Neurologically, those words are resilient and adaptable. I want my kids to know that they're going to face obstacles and they should almost, not in a weird, but they should be more, almost relish them, be ready for them because you're going to get stronger. You're going to become more resilient as a result of the challenges you overcome. The last thing I want to do is to teach my kids to think that they can go through life by sidestepping challenges and that they're never going to face them, because that would be horrendous preparation and proactive care as a parent. And so what we love is that the chiropractic philosophical principles, dads and moms, are mother freaking perfectly aligned with exactly what your kids need. Our world does have more toxicity. Our world does have more technology. Our world does have more victim mentality to it than ever before. So what our kids need is more resilience, more adaptability, and they need that to come through their nervous system. So kids of today need this kind of chiropractic more than ever before. And what it'll do is it'll give them a distinct, stark advantage to their peers. Kids who get chiropractic aren't just healthier and get sick less often. We have these philosophies, these principles, these perspectives we've been talking about all along on here. We're really talking about, we share that with kids as well. And I can tell you, I've thought about this, prayed about this for almost 2 decades now. What this generation and our future generation of kids need, Jonah, you nailed it. They need more proactive resilience than ever before. And what we are here to do is to adjust your families. Yes. Adjust your kids. Yes. Have fun. We will impart some sweet dad jokes to your kids. It's really, really incredible. We have a high level of dad jokes and patient experiences at PWC, but we will also teach them alongside you, in partnership with you, to be resilient, to be adaptable, to be
because health isn't just about avoidance, right? And that's, I think, one of the things we always question as parents. Of it's like, why can't my kid do this? Yeah. Why does my kid get overwhelmed? We go camping for 2 days. We play on a travel sports team. We do, they go to a birthday party and it wrecks their weekend. It wrecks their week. They struggle in school. They, get sick more often. All these things. And we sit there, at night when we're, just kind of reflecting on it. And we're like, why can't my kid handle this? I want them to get after it. I want them to experience life. I don't want them to have to avoid it. And that is the chiropractic principle about it. It's not that, hey, it's not that, those things are bad. It's that my kiddo is strong enough to conquer that challenge and it not to bring him down. And we see that out there in the world. And when we see that, it's almost like it's like, I see that, I want that. Yeah. And that is what chiropractic kiddos in life really are. You get people, and I love this. Not to say but in my kids' classrooms, I love parents being like, man, your kids, they didn't miss a day of school this year. Like, that's so cool. I'm like, it's really cool. It's not that they weren't around people who were sick. They were around people who were sick. It's not that we didn't get after on the weekends. It's not that they didn't, eat bad stuff sometimes. They were able to be adaptable, be resilient, have that bucket be really, really big so they could handle those things.
There's a bit of a hidden truth that sometimes, so there's what we call the pendulum effect, and we'll close it with this, moms and dads. When we charge, Chrysler, town and country, driving 90 miles per hour, full steam into this.
It's Pacifica now.
Did I get it wrong?
Come on, the town and country is a few years old. He doesn't drive a minivan anymore. His kids are older. Yeah. Our kids are young. You're not.
Jonah's not even too minivan.
He's not minivan yet. My wife is full on minivan. You'll see me.
So there's stages of parenting where you don't begin in a minivan. You get to a minivan, and then you get through a minivan.
Yeah.
Is that what not? Yeah.
So that is the three of us. It's through. It's in the middle. It's not there yet.
Okay.
We should enter it.
The most accurate thing I think we've taught ever on this. Okay.
Oh, man.
We got to make a movie
sound at the beginning.
Yeah, totally. That's got to be podcast team. Edit that as the intro right there. That teaser clip. Minivan, 3 minivan experts on here. Okay. All right. So now perfectly. I totally lost it. Pendulum effect. So what happens when we're screaming 90 in our, Pacifica? No,
Pacifica.
Yeah, Pacifica.
Right, okay. Town and country is not as cool as
Pacifica. Or your Suburban or your Wagoneer, or if we're a farm family, so your Ford Expedition, whatever you are hauling down this natural granola holistic world. You've got your Stanley in there that's got all sorts of lead mixed in with it. That's a bad joke. Okay, so inside your Stanley, you've got your Element, you've got your magnesium. Actually, moms, we know you. You've got 3 to 4 different hydration options. You might have had your Pacifica custom built to have 4 different drink carriers, not for your kids, but all your hydration. I just wanted to add the jokes to that there. And so you're screaming down the road, and you have ditched. And you're so done with conventional medicine because they dismissed you. They belittled you. We talk about that all the time. I actually just released an episode called The 3 Reasons That Conventional Pediatricians Failed Your Family. And there's more than 3. So you're out. What you probably did is you went so far, freaking far, awesomely far into the natural holistic world. You now live life in fear of mozzarella sticks. Okay, I told this in a very Tony way. You're thinking, oh my God, if my child has if he walks by red dye number 40,
don't touch the seed. Don't touch theirs.
Don't touch it. You got EMF blockers. You live in a cloud of lavender, and we're having fun with this, and I hope you are too, because it's freaking awesome. That is the exact direction that all of our families need to go, but we need to live with this dream of a natural, holistic, healthy family that can operate. We teach this to parents all the time, that can operate in the day-to-day reality of real life, which is not every family that they're going to go to a birthday party or sleepover, not every school, not every place is going to come chemical-free and holistic. So can your kids adapt? Can they handle it? And what we want as dads and what we want as parents is we want kids who can absolutely, positively handle it, and also know that the vast majority of the time, don't choose the mozzarella stick. My kids know exactly what has chemicals and what doesn't. And they choose clean. They choose healthy. They choose to be active. We're going to close it with this. And it's not even a question. I'll just close this down on it. And I know you guys do. This are perfect examples of this. We choose to be healthy. Now, dads and moms, this is the most basic of lessons, but it's so basic we need to be reminded of it, because I think a lot of times to be healthy, we don't always need something new. We need a little bit of new with a lot of reminders of what works well for our kids to be resilient, for our kids to be healthy, for our kids to be happy, for our kids to be fit, for our kids to fall in love with chiropractic as the foundational first choice for their healthcare. They need to see us live it every day. And so what I know about Jonah and what I know about Matt is, I actually just saw it this weekend. I saw pictures of your kids working out with you. I saw pictures of your kids being engaged in healthy cooking and eating with you. And so what happens, and what we want to do for our kids to build this grit, to build this resilience, let's build it for ourselves first. So dads, we're going to leave this message with you. We wanted to help you today, and moms sharing this with dads. Again, get them to listen to at least this episode. If not, translate it for them. Here's what it's about. It's about building resilience. It's about building perseverance in our kiddos. And it's about being healthy neurologically as a whole family. So dads, you want to talk about, let's see how it goes with getting your kids and family adjusted. You want to know the real cheat code, the real secret sauce to where you'll go, son of a gun, I totally get it now. Get it yourself. Commit to 6 weeks. I'll give you even a number. That way you don't have to overthink it. Commit to 6 weeks of real neurologically focused chiropractic. So almost every PX doctor, we're going to release this the week of Father's Day. Pretty much every PX doctor, I promise you this, if your whole family is getting adjusted and you've still been some skeptical, the word that other people would use that we deconstructed today, if you still haven't experienced, that's the name of the podcast, chiropractic yourself, go give yourself chiropractic care this summer, at least 6 weeks. If you've been struggling with any chronic health issues, anything like that, give it 12. Give it a real test. Don't give it a Google search. Don't just give this podcast the credit. Give yourself the credit. Go get adjusted. Experience it for yourself. Realize what it's like to actually sleep through the night. Realize what it's like to not live with physical pain and exhaustion, muscle tension all the time. Realize what it's like to have your digestion rocking and rolling. Realize what it's like. Live life with resilience, with mental clarity that you probably haven't had for years, because we all live subluxated. We all live stressed if the conventional medical system is what we defaulted into. So dads, get the heck out yourself. Get under care yourself. Anything you need to make that happen, you send us a DM. Any questions you need, you want us to do more podcasts about different things dad struggled with or write more articles, this is a family freaking platform. We start with our kids because all of us are wired that way first. That's our foremost focus. But if you want to focus on your kids' health, don't forget to focus on your own as well. And if you've been lethargic and you've been exhausted and you've been depressed and you've been anxious, then getting adjusted will transform your life first, or in addition, depending on how your family has come into this. And when you do that, then you'll get it at a level that is no words, no articles, no podcasts could really give you. Experiencing chiropractic care for yourself is the number one best freaking thing you could do this summer. Get it done, and you'll then know everything we talked about on this podcast. This is why Jonah's so passionate. This is why Matt's so passionate. This is why our kids are so resilient, because we lead by example, not just by cruising down the Pacifica. Do you know, so Pacificas come, if you get married and have a Pacifica, you not only have built-in like fancy high-tech warnings if somebody breaks in front of you, But even before the technology will tell you that the light is turning red, or that the person in front of you is braking, your spouse in the passenger seat lets you know that they're slowing down. It is a special gift. And we would all be just in daily car accidents without it. So there we go. Closed real serious, and then most importantly, closed real sarcastic. All right, everyone, this podcast is about hope, answers, and health, and it includes dads. We love you, homies. Happy freaking Father's Day. We'll be celebrating. We'll be barbecuing. Hopefully, we're doing nothing that day, right? Sitting back and chilling. We suck at sitting back and doing nothing, so we'll be doing something. But, all right, everybody, please share this one. Please subscribe. Please download. We'll see you on the next one.